Open Doors with Brother Andrew. Okay, Open Doors with Brother Andrew, and he wrote a book called God's Smuggler, and he would smuggle Bibles in his car to closed countries in Europe that were closed to the gospel of Jesus. They wouldn't allow any preaching, nobody Bibles, nothing. And so he would drive up to the border in a Volkswagen, little Volkswagen, little Beetle, and the whole back would be filled with Bibles, the whole front seat. The only one where there wasn't Bibles was where he was driving. And he'd pull up to the guard gate, and they would ask him, "Do you have anything to declare?" And he'd say no. And then they'd walk around his car and look in the windows and look everywhere, but they didn't see anything. So he had a prayer that he prayed before he got there. He would say, "God, you've made blind eyes see. Now when I get to that guard right up there, make seeing eyes blind." And he did. God did. He blinded every single guard.
In the back?
They were in the front. They were in the front seat, all the way from the seat to the ceiling. The only place there wasn't a Bible was where he was driving. They were in a suitcase. They were everywhere. They were, underneath the hood and everything. And so right away, that was confirmation that he was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So Sue and I we were members of Open Doors. There's an organization called Open Doors, and the guy's name is Andrew. And so I just used to think about, boy, that was really cool to do something like that. And so I was driving down Olive Road, and I was driving my wife's green Previa. It's like a big van, and it's kind of like curved. And I'm driving down the road, and the Lord speaks to me, and he says, "I want you to smuggle Bibles into Cuba." Those are the exact words. "I want you to smuggle Bibles into Cuba." And I went, well, I know God's voice because he's talking with me all the time. And
is that audible?
But I quit sometimes.
Or just your spirit? Okay. It is sometimes audible?
So I'm driving down Olive Road going west from 9th Avenue, going west. And I had the audacity to question whether that was God or not. And I said, "You want me to do what?" And as soon as I did that, the Holy Spirit came on me. And I started shaking like this. I could hardly. I went off the side of the road a couple of times because, that was me. What do you think? I said, "Okay." I finally said, "Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, I got it." So I from that point on, I contacted Open Doors with Brother Andrew out of California, and they said, "Okay. This is what you need to do. You need to get a passport. You need to do this, and we'll make arrangements. You have to fly to Toronto, and because you can't fly directly from the United States to Cuba, you have to go to a third country." And so the closest place was to go all the way up to Canada and then come all the way back down to Florida, past to Cuba. Seems silly, but that's the way they did it. So this part I didn't tell you the other day, but I said, "Okay." And so he said, "You have to get your passport, and do all this stuff." So on the passport, you have to write down where you're going to go, what countries you're going to visit. I left it blank because U.S. citizens aren't allowed to go to Cuba. So I left it blank. So I was down at the downtown post office downtown, and the person does the passport was a guy who was a midget. He was literally a midget. He was this tall. And so this day that I went there, he wasn't there, but this other lady was there, this woman I'd never seen her there before. And so when I filled everything out and brought it back to her, she looked at it and she said, "Well, you left the spot blank right here." And Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, "She belongs to me, and she knows about Open Doors." So I said to her, I said, "Ma'am," I said, "The Lord just spoke to me and told me that you belong to Jesus. Are you a believer?" She said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, have you ever heard of an organization called Open Doors?" And she goes, "Are you kidding me? Are you serious? We had a speaker from Open Doors at First Baptist last night, and he told us everything that they do." about taking Bibles in and doing kind of stuff. So she's explaining. So I went like this. I went, and she went, oh. I said, okay, you got it. So she said, okay, now you just, here's a pen and just do this and put this check mark and do this. So I went over and I did. So she took it back. She goes, oh, okay, everything looks good. Let's take your picture. And she took my picture and, and they processed and gave me the passport. Wasn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So they gave me, they said, okay, here's your connection. You have to fly to Toronto. And that guy I told you earlier about, Bert Weiss, with his leg, and his wife Misty, who had the stroke. Well, Bert had a son who lived in Toronto, and so I stayed with them at their house in Toronto. Yeah, so it's amazing. It's amazing how he connects these little dots. So I went there, and they told me to bring 2 empty suitcases because they were going to fill it with Bibles. And then they also told me that you can only bring in the suitcase. The maximum it can weigh is 65 pounds. So flew into Toronto. Next day met with Open Doors. They picked me up and they took me to their headquarters and they crammed all these Bibles in there, and I had 2 big suitcases and 1 carry-on suitcase. It looked like a gym bag.
Is their headquarters underground?
No.
Then how come the guards or the people don't find it and put them in jail? It has to be hidden somewhere.
Well, Toronto is in Canada, so they don't have to hide anything in Canada. It's just places like Russia and China and those types of things, Hungary. And so anyway, he puts all these, and we put it on the scale, and it was 93 pounds. Each of the suitcases was 93 pounds. It's the same figure I gave you, right? 93. And so I said, these are overweight. He said, God will take care of it. I said, okay. So the next day, we load my suitcases and me and they drop me off at Toronto airport, and this guy behind the counter is an Indian. Little guy. He's from India, so hi, my name is Mr. Patel. He has the accent, and so I presented my stuff to him, and so he walked over, and I couldn't carry the bag, so I had a cart that I had him on. So he said, you have to put them on here, and then I'll put them on the scales, which is behind me, and he had one of those like big round scales, like animal scales that they have. If you've been on a farm and they've done livestock, and they do so. He grabs the suitcase and he goes to move, and probably weighed more than him because he was just a little tiny guy. I'm serious. So he goes like this, and then he looks at me like, "What is in here?" I didn't say anything. I'm just looking at him like, okay. So he wrestles that suitcase, and he throws it on the scale, and I watched with my own eyes. The needle went whoop, boop. Stopped at 65 pounds. And I kind of like went.
I've had 85, almost 30 pounds.
I went kind of like, I didn't want to be too obvious, but it's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So then he did it with the second suitcase and the same thing. It stopped at 65.
Thinking,
Yeah, I'm gonna stop here.
I feel weak today.
So you go in as a team, and they connect me with a guy named Don, who is a school teacher from Buffalo, and he's a supporter of Open Doors financially. He was always reading about all these stories, but he's not a spirit-filled Christian, and he's just this would sound like a fun thing to do. So he volunteered to go on this Bible smuggling trip where I was sent. He thought it was going to be a lark. 2 different things. Mm-hmm. Remember that. So we get into Cuba. I mean, we get on the airplane. We go on Air Cubana. The seats. I could not keep my legs straight. I had to pull my legs up because the seat in front of you was against your leg. Aww. You couldn't. It was not a normal. It was a squished plane. Yeah. Everybody was squished. no AC.
Oh, I'd be close.
When we were taxiing in, there's no AC. I'm just breaking out in this sweat. So we get out of the plane, and you have to they X-ray your carry-on bags, and then you have to take a cart and put your suitcases on the cart, and then they examine them. You have to go through a gate, and then they examine them each suitcase. So I get in the line.
Was this in Cuba?
It was in Cuba. I'm now in Cuba.
Oh.
So I get in the line, and I have my carry-on bag. It's full of Bibles too, that little ones.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I'm not questioning how you're going to do this because I saw what you did in Canada, in Toronto. So I said, I'm just open to anything that you do. Whatever you do is going to be awesome. So I get up, and it's a conveyor belt in front of me. And at the end of the conveyor belt is right before, there's a little X-ray machine, and then there's a screen that the guy looks at it, so it shows you what's in the suitcase. So I'm down here, and I stick it on here at the conveyor belt, and the suitcase is going this way. And as it's going this way, it gets to right about here, another Cuban man walks over to the guy that's running the computer and goes to hand him a note. When he goes to hand him the note, it hits his hand and it falls on the ground, and the guy goes on the ground, and he bends down like this. When he bent down, my suitcase went through the X-ray machine.
So they didn't get to see what
So
was
he
in
didn't
it.
get to see what was in there. So
It
I
was
was
right
like,
here. They're like,
yeah, and he was trying to pick it up. And by the time he picked it up, it was through. So I was like, this is way cool. So Don was he went in front of me. So we're standing there, and he says, what line are you going to go in? I said, I don't know. I'm going to let the Lord tell me. And I said, what about you? He said, I'm going to go in the first line. So he gets in the first line, and I'm kind of like just standing there because I think there was 12 lines that you could get into.
mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure it was 12, not 14, but it was double digits. And so he's going through the line. He's going pretty fast, and I've made an observation. A lot of the people from the United States come back to Cuba to bless their family members that are still in there because they don't have things. I mean, the women are allowed to buy one pair of underwear and 2 pairs of underwear and 1 bra a year.
Wow.
That's all they're allowed. That's all they're allowed. They give them like 5 eggs and something like a week, and it's terrible how they treat their people. It's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, okay. So Don's over there in line 1, and I'm standing there, and I'm saying, Lord, which line do you want me to go through? And I don't hear it, nothing. And all of a sudden I hear beep beep beep, and the lights are going off on the first one, and that's where Don is. And they caught him. They had all of his Bibles out, all of his clothes out, and it was like the alarms are going off. The guards are running over there with their rifles. I mean, it was a big deal. And so, yeah, and it has a light that's spinning around. So I don't want to look over there because to call attention that I came on the plane with this guy.
Yeah.
So anyway, I kind of went like this to glance over there. When I glanced over there, the tour director that was assigned to our plane, a female, locks eyes with me. And she comes over like a beeline, just coming. And she comes over to me, she said, sir, you need to get in the line. We need to get this thing going because we have to take the bus and go, we went to the Itabo Hotel. See if you remember the name of the hotel. The Itabo Hotel. And she said, you need to just get in the line. I said, okay. So I started down the line, and I said, Lord, which line you want me to go? And he said, stop right here. So I said, okay, I stopped. She went back to Don and assisting him. And so the alarms are still going off, and I'm standing in this line. And here's what the people in front of me was happening when I looked 3 or 4 people up. They were taking this woman who was a Cuban national that had escaped, gone back to the U.S., now became a citizen, and was bringing back things to her family members. So in her suitcase was items of clothing, to be gifted to them. And here's what the guards were doing. and it was one sock. And then they put that over in that pile like that, and they go and take the next sock
Why are they doing
to harass
that? Oh.
the people that they know were nationals and left the country and escaped. And she had a giant suitcase and it was full, so I know it is
That's
going.
what I'm gonna get now.
Yeah, it's going to be. So anyway, I'm watching him do all this, and all of a sudden, I glance over again. Whoop! I lock eyes with the tour director again, and she comes bustling over to me. She said, "I thought I told you to get in a line that goes faster than her. We need to get going. You need to get out of this line and get in one that's going to go process faster. Do you understand?" I said, "Yes, I do." And so she went to leave, so I backed out and I started going down. I'm walking down, and I said, "Okay, Lord, which line you want me to go in? Which line you want me to go in?" Boop, this one. So I turn into this one, and when I turn into this one, I'm standing there waiting, and I'm watching them harass all these people by holding one sock up, one stocking. It was like, it was
That's
crazy. One handkerchief. So anyway, after I was looking at that, all of a sudden my line went really fast, and now it's my turn, and all of a sudden I'm up there, and so I have a push cart with my 2 full suitcases on there, and they don't have to examine the little one because that was supposed to have been done at the X-ray, so that's not going to get looked at again, but the 2 big ones are. And so the guard looks at me. He said, "Cuántos días? How many days? Want to know how long I was going to stay?" So I went, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I said, 7 días. So he goes like this, and then he takes his eyes off of my eyes, and he stares at the suitcases, and then he looks right back in my eyes again, and it felt like I was being violated, like his eyes were penetrating me, and he was staring into my soul, and he looked at me, and then he looked back at the suitcases again, and then he looked back in my eyes. He was trying to see if I'd give him a reaction of some sort. He did that 3 times, I think, 2 or 3 times. And then on the last time he did it, he took a piece of paper on a note, and he wrote the number 3 on it. Never opened my suitcase. He wrote a number 3 on it and handed it to me. And he went like this. So I backed out, and out the door I went, found the bus I was supposed to go to, slugged those 2 suitcases underneath, you know how they open up under the bus? And then I went to the back of the bus. I was all the way to the back. And so after a while, here comes Don, the guy who's hooked up with me. And he comes straight to the back and sits next to me. And the 2 Gestapo guys that are assigned to him follow him onto the bus.
It goes to the
So he sits down next to me. I was closest to the window. He sits down next to me, and I go, "Are you kidding me? What are you doing? Why did you do this? Why are you sitting next to me? You see those 2 guys up front? They followed you on the bus. What's the matter with you?" And he's like oblivious to all this. He's like oblivious. So he goes, "Oh," I said, "I'm sorry." He started blubbering. He was an English teacher, in high school. And it's like, okay, we'll get over it. So now we get it. The bus loads up. Everybody's finally on the bus, and we go out to the countryside, and it's Itabo Hotel, Itabo, Itabo Hotel. And we get in, and they said, when we were going out the bus, we're having a briefing, and you need to come to the briefing because it'll tell you what you can and can't do while you're staying in this hotel, or if you go into Havana or wherever you're going to go. So Don says, I'm not going to that meeting because all I have is a pair of clothes, a bathing suit, and my toothbrush, and they took everything from him. They left him nothing except bare necessities. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to go. So I went down to the meeting, and they told us what you can do, what you can't do. Do not exchange your money do not change dollars for pesos or anything like that. Do not do that, because if you do it on the street, you'll get arrested, and the person you're doing it with will get arrested too, because they have eyes everywhere, eyes. So I came back, and while I'm walking down the hallway, the Lord gave me a plan what to do, because they told us where to catch the bus to go to Havana. And so I said, okay, this is cool. So I get in there, I say, hey, Don, I got a plan. The Lord gave me the plan. I got a really good plan. He goes, what is it? And I said, you go put your bathing suit on, and you're gonna go out to the beach. And I'm gonna watch out the window, because they had a little walk bridge that went out to the beach. It was a little bridge and went over some water. Went over. I said, I'm gonna watch the Gestapo boys follow you, because that's what they're gonna do. And I'm just gonna go out. I know where to pick up the bus. I know where to go. So when they follow you, I'm gonna go out behind them and go down to the bus stop. So he goes, oh, okay, cool. So he gets his bathing suit on. He goes out, and nobody follows him. And I'm watching out the window, and they're not following us. So I'm like, what? And so the Lord says, go ahead out. I said, okay. So I got my carry-on bag, and I walked out the back doors. And when I'm just about to go out, they had an overhang to protect the doors from the sunlight and rain and stuff like that. It was an overhang. So I'm just about to step out from the overhang, and the Holy Spirit said, stop! So I froze. I just froze. And he said, stick your head out and look up to the right. So I stick my head out like this, and I look up to the right. And there's a water tower up there. And the Gestapo boys are up there, and they have binoculars. They were looking at Don with binoculars.
Oh my goodness.
And they're focused right on him, see? And I'm down here, see? So they're focusing on him, yeah, and they're moving like this, but they never took the glasses off. They were having. So the Holy Spirit said, go. So I walked out, went down the sidewalk, down I went, and they didn't look at me or nothing. I didn't turn around to see. I just left. And so I went down there, and there was a cinder block hut with a sign on it that says Guagua. That's bus for Spanish. Guagua. So I said, I thought that's the spot. So I sat there, and this is middle of July. Hot.
Oh.
So I'm sitting there, and I'm just sweating and sweating and sweating. There's no traffic. Nothing's coming by. There's no people going by, no buses going by, no cars going by, nothing. So this small Cuban lady, big heavyset lady, comes walking up this way, goes past me, and she stops, and she asks me, I know what she was saying, but I don't know how to say it to you, but she asked me, are you waiting for the bus? Mm-hmm. And I understood what she was saying, so I said, yes, and she pointed to the sign. She went up to the sign like this, and she went, no. She went, and I looked, and I followed the street. There was another bus stop over there. So I was at the wrong one. So I went down the street, turned right, and I went to the next bus stop, and there was a line for the next bus. So when the next bus comes, it was not a double decker, but a double attached bus. The second bus was attached by a pole, and had like a little accordion thing in between. And so what they do is you get on the bus, but then the conductor comes out and he crams you in it, stuffs you in like a sardine if you can't get in. So I'm the last guy on the bus, and he's pushing me in. And here's what the doors are doing: they're closing on me, and they go like this and open up, and they close, open up. And so finally he decides I ain't gonna fit in there. So he grabs me by the back of my belt, whoop, pulls me out, and says to me in Spanish for the next, I knew what he was saying, but it was wait for the next bus. Now I'm first in line. Mm-hmm. So that bus goes away. So I said, okay, then there's people behind me. Next bus shows up, I walk in, there's a whole lot of room, but there was no seats. So I was standing in the aisle, and I took my suitcase and I put it down, and I was standing, and the bus was going this way, but I was looking out that window. The bus was heading that way. And so I'm kind of looking out the window like this, so I don't know where I'm going. I was just looking out in the farmland, seeing how pretty it is, and going along. And I said, Lord, I don't know where I'm going. Can you help me here? He said, ask the man in front of you. His wife was sitting next to him at the window. He was sitting right in front of me. I said, sir, habla inglés? He said, oh yeah, I speak English. I said, look, I need to go to 1253 Infanta Street. You know how long ago ago was that I was given that address. I was assigned that address to go to 1253 Infanta Street and see Hector Hunter. That's my instructions. Deliver the goods. Okay?
God or those people?
The people from Open Doors
Okay,
gave me a name and an address to go to. So the guy turns, he says, wait a minute, just wait a minute. He talks to his wife. They're talking back and forth. And they're talking back and forth. And finally he turns to me, he says, my wife says to get off when we get off, and then she'll direct you which bus that you need to go on. And he said, we're getting off at Revolution Square, downtown Havana. I said, okay. So Revolution Square is like a rectangle. It's like a rectangle. It's like a rectangle. And so we get off right here at this end, right, the bus drops us off right here. Now we're standing right here, and he and his wife start talking, and talking back, and they're going like this, and going like this, and finally he says, okay, I got the right one. Where do you need? You need to go over here on that corner. We're on this corner. You need to go across the square, go on that corner, and stand on that corner, and when bus 52 shows up, get on that bus, and it's going to start going that way, but it will make a U-turn, and it'll come back, and it'll go and take you, and just look out the window, and when you see Infanta Street, get off. And then she doesn't know whether it's left or the right, but it'll be Infanta Street, just watch. I said, okay. So I go over and I walk over here, and I'm standing on this street corner, and I'm facing that way. My back is to this road, and there's a light there. My back is to this road. So this big, tall Cuban boy walks up to me. He says, Americano? I said, yeah. He said, change money? I said, nope. He goes, why not? I said, because they gave us instructions not to do that. That somebody's going to see it, and you're going to get arrested, and so will I, and I'm not going to do that. Why that is happening, that conversation is happening, my back is to the road. A car pulls up behind me. I didn't know it, but a car pulls up behind me, and in this car is Hector Hunter driving, his wife Danya on the passenger seat, and his wife's mother in the back seat. And it was on a Monday, and that's his only day off, is Monday. They only get one, pastor, they only got one day off. So the wife has the window down, and she hears that Cuban boy ask me about changing money. And she turns to her husband and says, husband, that boy just asked that American about changing money, and those two guys that are standing over there by the pole are two Gestapo guys, and they're watching him. And if he changes money, they're going to both get arrested. I think you need to step out and help them. Hector Hunter goes, Lord, my mother-in-law's in the back seat, my wife's in this seat, today's my only day off, and we need to go shopping. Please take care of them. And he drives away. So bus 52 or 53 pulls up. I get on the bus. It does exactly what they said. It went that way, made a U-turn, started coming up this way, and goes, we're going that way, and I'm kind of looking out, and I still don't know where I'm going. So I'm seeing the street signs, and I said, Lord, I need some help. He said, ask the guy in front of you. So I said, sir, habla inglés? He goes, yeah, yeah. I said, I need to get off at Infanta Street. He said, that's where I'm getting off. He said, I'm a nurse, and I'm going to the hospital to go to work. So when I get off, you just get off with me. And then he says, I think 1253 is to the left. And so just go down that way until you see 1253, and you'll find out where you are. I said, okay. So he gets off, and he's walking towards the hospital. I'm following him because I want to make sure I'm not being followed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm walking like maybe a block and a half, and I kept kind of like looking. Nobody's following me. Said, okay. So I turned around. I went back to Infanta Street, and I turned right, went down the street, and I found 1253, and there was a church, and it had big 12-foot doors that were curved like this. Mm-hmm. They were curved doors, almost like cathedral doors. Mm-hmm. And it had a separation in the middle, so you can open either one of them. So I bang on the door, boom, 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 because it's locked. Boom, boom, boom. Nothing. Then I hear, somebody's playing a trumpet in there. I said, well, that's interesting. So I had my head cocked, and there's a sign on the wall right there, the hours that they're open and closed. and it says, and when it would close it was 3 o'clock, and it's 3:15. So I said, dang, I missed it. But I hear somebody in there playing a trumpet. So I said, oh, I know what I'm going to do. When he stops playing, I'm going to bang on this door. So he stops playing, and boom, boom, boom.
He's probably like,
And then I don't hear any music anymore. Then the door swings open, and this big, tall Cuban boy with a trumpet in his hands starts talking to me in Spanish. I said, no hable español, o poquito. So he goes, I figure he's asked me what he want. I said, Hector Hunter. That's all I said was Hector Hunter. He looks over my shoulder on the street like this, and he grabs me and pulls me in, slams the door. He goes like this, and we go across the church, go downstairs, go this way, and then that way down the stairs, and then into the basement. And he brings me to this little guy, and he starts talking to him in Spanish, and then he said, I know what he was saying, because then he said Hector Hunter, that I mentioned Hector Hunter. So the little guy says, I'll get you a taxi. I'll pay the taxi, you just get in a taxi, and he'll take you to Hector Hunter's. So I get in the taxi, and I'm sitting in the back. I don't know where we're going. I don't even know where the guy lives. And it turns out Hector Hunter is the assistant superintendent of all the assemblies of God on the whole nation of Cuba.
oh wow.
So we're driving up maybe 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. If you ask me how I got there, I could never tell you how to get there. So we pull up, and it's a 2-story building. The church is at the bottom, and the building is like this. This front faces the street, and there's some stairways right here on the side. And so the taxi cab driver does this to me to go up the steps. So I go up the steps, and when I get up the steps, I go up to the doorway right there, and I knock on the door, and I hear, "Entre en mi casa," come into my house, "Entre en mi casa." So I walk in that door, and sitting right here was Hector Hunter, and here's what he did. His mouth dropped open, and he looked at me, and then he went like this.
To his wife?
She was behind a curtain in the kitchen, and I didn't see who was looking at me, but he looked at her, and he looked at me again. His mouth was wide open.
Was he expecting you?
No, they didn't know me from Adam.
But so they didn't know if somebody was bringing
No,
something?
they didn't
Okay.
know. But his mouth was wide open because he parked behind me at that red light, and he's connecting the dots. So he looks back to his wife again, and he looks back to me, and he says, "Brother, please forgive me." That's the first words out of his mouth.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, I forgive you, but for what?" He said, "When you were downtown Revolution Square," he said, "the Lord put me right behind you, and you would have been here an hour and a half ago instead of how long it took you to get here." So I said, "I'm sorry."